God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, Jackie, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Evans,
Here.
Vice Mayor Russell,
Here.
Mr. Mitchell,
Here.
Mr. Parrish,
Here.
Ms. Cooper,
Here.
Mr. Redmond,
Present.
Ms. Chamberlain.
Here. All right, that takes us to one of our favorite things, and that is a swearing in of a new officer, Chief Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce our newest officer, Mr. Jeff Haggie. Jeff grew up in Deer Park, graduated from Deer Park High School in 1990, and went on to serve as a dispatcher for the Deer Park Police and Fire Departments for 3 years. In 1994, the same year I started here, he was promoted to a police officer and served 9 years, including 1 year assignment as an undercover agent with the Hamilton County Drug Abuse Reduction Task Force, known as DART. In 2003, Jeff moved to the Madeira Police Department, where he served as an officer for 4 years and an investigator for 2 years before being promoted to the rank of lieutenant in 2009. As a lieutenant, Jeff graduated from the Police Executive Leadership College and implemented Coffee with a Cop for the Madeira Police Department. Jeff retired from active duty in 2019, but his desire to serve in a part-time capacity led him to the Owensville Police Department, where he served for 3 years. Jeff has an 11-year-old son, Julian. He's also accompanied by his mother tonight. He enjoys camping, metal detecting, mountain biking, and martial arts. Tonight is the culmination of a process that began in November to replace retired part-time detective Steve Rogers. The selection process has many aspects, and there's a reason for that. We are very selective about who we let wear the uniform and badge of a Milford police officer. Tonight, Jeff, you officially earn the right to wear our badge and are officially indoctrinated as a member of the Milford Police Department, a family with a heritage that extends back to the 1800s. As you're probably aware, the first badges were a coat of arms worn by knights. The coat of arms identified the knight and his allegiance to justice, chivalry, and his royal leaders. Police officers swear to protect and serve the same as knights from the medieval era were often sworn in and asked to protect the weak, defenseless, helpless, and fight for the general welfare of all. Tonight, the badge is new and shiny. Over the years, it will acquire scratches and scuffs, but it's your responsibility to ensure that it remains untarnished, as I know you will. For when an officer tarnishes his or her badge, they tarnish the badge of every officer, including those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Every Milford police officer is required to take 2 oaths, the IACP Oath of Honor and the City of Milford Oath of Office. It's now time for you to take those solemn pledges with me. We'll start with the Oath of Honor. If you would raise your right hand and repeat after me. On my honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I will always uphold the Constitution, my community, and the agency I serve. Very good. And now for the City of Milford Oath of Office. So if you would, raise your right hand again. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jeffrey Hagee,
Promise and swear
to
support the Constitution of the United States of America,
support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter of the Municipality of the City of Milford,
and the Charter of Municipality of the City of Milford,
and to faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and to faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of police officer
discharge the duties of police officer
to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Very good. It is now my pleasure to present you with the Milford Police Badge. The badge is to be worn over your heart for 2 reasons. First, to ever remind you of your pledge to protect. Secondly, because the left arm was the arm that often held the shield, protecting the heart and leaving the right hand to fight with a weapon. And we've asked Julian to do the honors of pinning Dad's badge on.
Carefully.
Please practice.
Great job, Julian. Remember, Jeff, the name on your badge represents who you serve, and the name on your nameplate represents who raised you. It's our responsibility to represent both with honor and integrity. Next, I'd like to present you with the MPD Challenge Coin. There are varying tales about the origin of challenge coins. Some say it dates back to the Roman Empire. Others credit a young fighter pilot from the First World War. For us, it's a symbol of honor and a constant reminder that we are doing something worthwhile. On the front, it proudly displays the core values that every officer is committed to living by. On the back, you'll find our motto, which I know you're familiar with: am I doing the right thing at the right time, in the right way, and for the right reason? You're to carry this with you at all times, and you're permitted in certain circumstances to give it to a citizen who exemplifies our core values. It's my pleasure to give it to you now and congratulate you on being a part of the team. Have your oath of honor to sign, or oath of office, rather.
Every day's a Saturday.
Make sure you get a good group picture, Sean.
I appreciate the opportunity and the privilege to be able to serve the community.
Welcome.
Welcome,
Yes,
thank you.
welcome.
Yeah, do a picture,
Thank
you
you.
want a picture of all of you?
Yeah. We'll get
We'll get out of the way.
the officers in the back want to join us?
Come on up.
Yeah.
Roll out of the way.
Don't fall.
Russ is in the front.
Yeah, really. Go behind.
Alrighty, ready to go? 1, 2, 3, I'll take several of them.
All right, that takes us to a presentation tonight from Vision Development. I will turn it over to you.
So Mayor, I want to,
You want to say something first?
yeah,
Mayor?
introduce them here when we get settled in. Tonight, you have representatives from Vision Development. You have Pete LaRose and Jackson Klein. A little bit later on in your council meeting on your ordinances, you will have consideration of an ordinance creating a TIF for River's Edge, which would be this development. So we have Mr. Mike Dean in the back with Dinsmore, so it's a Dinsmore show tonight, his colleagues here. So just go ahead and introduce Pete and Jackson.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Pete LaRose with Vision Development, joined by Jack Klein. We make up the acquisitions team. Just a point before we get started. We're not planning to submit our preliminary development plan until March 27th for a May hearing, I believe. So the presentation we talk about tonight is going to be pretty brief. So we're here tonight to discuss our proposed project, a little detail with it, but also the need to utilize a commercial TIF, a financial incentive that will be critical in ensuring our proposed project gets developed. Due to the rising rates, highly restrictive lending environment, and construction costs that have not abated, we will have to terminate this project if the proposed resolution is not approved tonight. Briefly, before we discuss the project in more detail, I just wanted to talk briefly about Vision. We've been land developers since 1994. We are owned by the Reitzel family out of Columbus. We've developed approximately 5,000 units across the state of Ohio, as well as commercial, retail, and warehouse projects. We are a vertically integrated company, so we do everything from the acquisition of the site to building the project to managing the project. We think that's a key differentiator between us and our competitors, and that once you turn over a project in any part of the process to a third party, you lose quality control. So we are there, soup to nuts, from start to finish. So let's see here, we'll run through this briefly. So that's the approximate location of the site next to Target. The site's about 11.5 acres. We like the site for its strategic location because of its proximity to retail, bars, restaurants, highway access. So right here is kind of our best bet of what we're looking at for the proposed project. Approximately 345 units, 55% one beds, 45% two beds. We're looking at doing the project in 2 phases. So we'll have call it a southern building that gets constructed, and then another building just north of it that also gets constructed. It's going to be highly amenitized. We typically spend about 10% of our total project cost on amenities alone. So that includes everything from resort-style pool, tiki bar, volleyball court, pickleball courts, CrossFit gym. So it's going to be a true Class A luxury apartment community. So this is what it looks like today. Again, come time in May for when we actually present the PDP, we will have colored renderings and quite a bit more detail of the project. So, you know, we mentioned to you last time we were here, there's a few different projects that we've already constructed that we think our project will actually mirror pretty closely. One is Murata on State Route 23, just north of Columbus. The other is the Ave on Indianola. That's in the Clintonville neighborhood of Columbus. But from an exterior perspective, I think what you're looking at up here on the slideshow probably represents what we're going to build, or something in between here. So that should give you a good idea. Another question that came up in our last presentation was how many students are we going to be housing within the project. Here you'll see 5 different projects that we've developed over the course of the last several years, and this gives you the exact amount of students that actually lived in the project. So anywhere from 7 to 9, 5, 0%, 16% of the units derived a student into the schools. So on average, we're at approximately 7%. As of today, we would estimate we'd be at about 7% on the project here in Milford as well. So 26 students. So high level, that's where we are today. Not a whole lot has changed since we last spoke. Again, in about a month and a half from now, we'll have a lot more to give you on project specifics, but you know, high level, without the incentive here tonight, we would not be able to move forward the project. So any questions you have, we're happy to answer those for you.
All right, I guess not. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, that takes us to the proceedings. Do I have a motion to approve the proceedings from the January 17th meeting?
To move.
Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
And financial statements, do I have a motion to adopt the December 2022 financial statements?
So move.
Second.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
All right, and that takes us to our public comment section. Would anyone from the public like to make a comment? Seeing none, that takes us to standing committee reports. Administrative Service Committee, Mr. Parrish.
Sure. So, the Administrative Service Committee, we met on January 17th, and we
The committee met on January 31st, 2023, and the meeting was called to order at 4:30 p.m. Present at the meeting were myself, Ms. Chamberlain, and Ms. Evans. Staff present were City Manager Michael Doss, Finance Director Pat Withrin, Executive Assistant Jackie Bain, and Wastewater Supervisor Dave Walker. We had visitors, Michael Dean, attorney with Dinsmore and Scholl, and Wastewater Supervisor Dave Walker. Proceedings, we proceeded to approve the proceedings from the January 11th Administrative Services Committee. Ms. Evans made a motion to approve, and that was seconded by myself. And then we moved on to a discussion of the proposed TIF for River's Edge. Mr. Doss introduced Mike Dean of Dinsmore and Scholl LLP, who has been working with the city on the tax increment financing on the proposed development located between Target and the movie theater at River's Edge. The committee reviewed proposed legislation which would establish the TIF for that parcel proposed by Vision Development. Mr. Doss explained that this is a TIF for 10 years at 75% of real property tax exemption. This parcel, if developed, would have a period of 10 years. 75% of its assessed value in taxes would be exempt. The remaining 25% would be collected based off of the value, which would then be dispersed amongst Claremont County, Milford schools, and also the city of Milford. Typically, with a TIF, there are service payments. As part of this incentive, we are foregoing this. Mr. Doss also noted that this has a $30 million threshold with this mark. They're proposing a $50 million development and wanted to mention that there are some analysis done by Dinsmore which referenced how many estimated students would impact the Milford schools. Mr. Dean reviewed TIF leverage and conditions to be met by the developer to maintain this exemption. He explained the development agreement and model numbers used to come up with the occupancy rates and income tax information. Mr. Doss explained that even though we are discussing property tax exemptions, tenure of 75%, he did want to make a point from the city's standpoint that in this analysis that Dinsmore conducted, there was a projection of an annual income tax of approximately $201,000 annually from the people that would be living out of this complex. And also, as construction is going on, projected year and a half to 2 years, we are looking at about $30,000 annually in just construction tax from those working at the site. It is an incentive and an investment. For 10 years, we will make up some of the monies directly through our municipal income tax as well. Ms. Evans asked if the developers would be required to put in sidewalks to connect to the main road and traffic. Mr. Doss explained this would be information that would come out of Planning Commission and the development negotiations. The committee agreed to recommend that the law director draft an ordinance declaring improvements to parcels of real property to be a public purpose, exempting such improvements from real property taxation. We then,
Second?
sorry,
Second.
seconded? Sorry.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Oh, I second,
Okay,
yeah,
I'm
sorry.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish.
Yes. All right, so then the committee moved on to a discussion amending appropriation ordinance 2022-181. Finance Director Pat Withrin reviewed a list of proposed amendments to the city's 2023 budgeted appropriations. The total increases amount to $5,263,923. The majority of amendments represent reappropriations carryover from 2022 of unfinished projects. The committee agreed to recommend that the law director draft an ordinance amending appropriation ordinance 2022-181 by increasing the individual items listed on the attached chart totaling $5,263,923.
Second.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain.
Yes.
The committee then moved on to a discussion for an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as part of the various component codes of the codified ordinance of Milford, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Clerk of Council Jackie Bain presented information that once a year, the city is required to pass an ordinance adopting the replacement pages to the codified ordinances approved during the prior 12 months and amendments to the traffic and general offense codes that were adopted by the Ohio General Assembly. Each year, the ordinances that are of a general and permanent nature of the city are codified. That is, they are collected, organized, and published to provide a directory of current enforceable laws in an easy-to-use format. Distribution included updates to the city website, along with paper copies distributed to the police, fire, and administrative departments. Paper copies were also mailed to the Law Library in Batavia, Hamilton County, and the Claremont County Public Library. The committee agreed to recommend that the law director draft an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as part of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Milford, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Ms. Russell.
Yes.
All right. The committee then moved on to a discussion revolving around appointing representatives to the Claremont County Tax Incentive Review Council. Mr. Doss discussed Claremont County Department of Community and Economic Development served a notice to the city that the CED is requesting each effective township, municipality, village, and school board to submit to them a copy of a resolution appointing 2 representatives for the 2023 Tax Incentive Review Council, known as TIRC, T-I-R-C, meeting. The city manager and finance director were recommended to serve as these representatives. The committee agreed to recommend that the law director draft a resolution appointing the city manager and finance director as representatives to the Claremont County Tax Incentive Review Council.
Second.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish.
Yes. We then had a discussion about a quote to repair the VACAL. Mr. Doss presented repair quote for VACAL sweeper truck. The truck is in much need of repairs. We use this truck quite a bit. The quote from JCM Maintenance LLC was reviewed at $11,110.39. Mr. Parrish, there were a few companies in the area that repair these trucks. Mr. Walker mentioned there were few local companies that do this type of repair work. At that point, the committee agreed to recommend that the law director draft an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with JCM Maintenance LLC for the repair of the VACAL sweeper totaling $11,110.39.
Second.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish,
Yes.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
The committee then entered into discussion about quotes for construction testing and special inspections for 5 Points Landing Park. Mr. Doss discussed quotes received that are part of the engineering costs associated with 5 Points Landing. Instead of this being MSP Inc., there is a component in the project for soil sampling, concrete testing, steel reinforcement, which MSP, our engineer on the project, could not do. Alt and Witzig Engineering Inc. works with MSP on a variety of projects. We solicited a quote to them to come in and do soil samples and inspect to assure, as this project is going on with DER, that we are getting quality concrete, pavers, and various products and services into the project. It is compositional and structural that the services they provide pass inspections. The committee then agreed to recommend that the law director draft an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Alt and Witzig Engineering, Inc. in the amount of $15,250 for testing and inspection fees.
Second.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Right, at that point, there was no further business, and the meeting was adjourned at 5:12 PM with a motion for Ms. Evans, seconded by Ms. Chamberlain.
right, thank you very much. That takes us to city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. A few updates this evening. Claremont County Parks and Recreation Grant. The city intends to make application for grant funding, which would go towards the resurfacing of the tennis court and actually establish a pickleball court at Sim. Wallace Avenue Waterline projects, bids were received for the Wallace Avenue Supply Line and Garfield Avenue Discharge Line projects. Those contractors will be selected at the next council meeting in one of our subsequent committees. Green Lawn Cemetery mowing bids, just want to remind the public and anyone interested that bids are due to the city by 2 p.m. Friday, February the 17th. We will have a mandatory pre-bid for those interested, mandatory pre-bid, and that is this Friday at 2 o'clock. State of the City presentation, I didn't want to upstand the president, so I pushed my State of the City back to next council meeting, February the 21st. Standing committee meetings, February 13th, there will be a Public Services Committee meeting at 4:30. February 15th, a Safety Services Committee meeting scheduled at 4:30. And then reminders, February 8th, tomorrow, there's a Planning Commission meeting at 6. February the 20th, City Hall will be closed in observation of President's Day. And then our next regularly scheduled City Council meeting is February 21st at 7.
All right, thank you. And that takes us to Chief Mills and the police report.
Thank you, Mayor. You should have received my January monthly report, but I'll go ahead and read it for the record. In terms of training, all members reviewed a new written directive on disclosure of exculpatory evidence. And then some notable occurrences. We had quite a few. A business on Olympic Drive had a reported embezzlement in the range of $250,000. A business on Milford Parkway had a business account that was compromised in almost $3 million in attempted fraud. So to this point, we don't think there's been any offenses committed, but there's been an attempt. So quite concerning. The State Patrol was requested for an auto accident on Chamber Drive where a death resulted from a medical emergency. At the new U-Haul, we had a breaking and entering incident where firearms were stolen. The suspect was quickly identified and arrested, and all the firearms were recovered. Officer Chastain had 2 drug interdiction stops during the month. The first involved 128 grams of marijuana being seized, and the second stop resulted in a seizure of methamphetamine that was just under the felony bulk amount. So some great work by Officer Chastain. A Mohawk Trail resident reported their vehicle being unauthorized use of their motor vehicle. Officers signed an arrest warrant and coordinated with an outside agency to recover that vehicle for that resident. Officers responded for an accidental discharge of a firearm on Forest Avenue, which resulted in a minor wound to the gun owner. And in an unrelated incident, also on Forest Avenue, we responded for a suicide by firearm. So some traumatic incidents during the month of January for sure. Officer Clark responded to a road rage incident that resulted in an arrest for OVI and having a handgun while being intoxicated. And Officer Dennis arrested an 18-year-old girl for a high-tier OVI offense. Administrative items. Sergeant West began the process of implementing our new Cortico Wellness app that you may recall me presenting at the budget meetings. A complainant reported unprofessional treatment by officers who removed him and his party from a restaurant at management's request. The body cam footage was reviewed by 3 levels of command, including myself, and we found no violations of policy. The detective squad investigated 26 cases during the month of January, and we had 2 responses to resistance. That's also known as a use of force during the month of January. And as always, those are also investigated by 3 levels of command. And in lighter news, Cohatch hosted us for a meet and greet on January 19th. On the 24th and 26th, we hosted Benchmark Human Services for a tour of the police facility. And some officers reaching out in the community. Officers provided a courtesy transport for a stranded subject at the Staybridge Hotel, food for a homeless person loitering at McDonald's, and temporary shelter for another homeless person. We let them use the lobby during some bad weather conditions. Officer Brown spoke twice at Pattison Elementary to the Enriching Kids program during the month, and Sergeant West met with all 5 of our Project Lifesaver clients to change their batteries. And some numbers during the month, officers conducted 131 vacation house checks. Once again, that's a service we provide. If you're going to be away from your home, there's a form you can fill out on our website where we'll check it for you while you're gone. We had 310 directed patrols and issued 18 cop watch forms during the month.
All right, thank you very much. It was a busy month.
Yes, it was.
All right, that takes us to Chief Baird, Fire and EMS.
Good evening, everyone. I put January and December 2022's written reports in front of you before we got started. Just want to go through a couple of things. From the December report, on the back of that, you see the beginning of our year-end statistics as they relate to emergency details handled in 2022, and we did have the busiest year we've ever had in 2022, not by a remarkable amount, but we were about, I'm guessing about 150 runs or so over our 5-year average. So as I've kind of alluded to throughout 2022, we are starting to see a little additional activity, emergency activity coming out of COVID. And so I will go into that more at the work session. Do we still have a work session scheduled for the first meeting in March? So I'll dive into the numbers a little bit. I won't bore you with a whole lot of statistics because they bore me too. But we'll dive into a little bit and talk about some things before I do while I'm doing the budget presentation. Just a couple of highlights, not on the reports, is the fact that the board, at my request, is we're going to go ahead and order the remount of our second ambulance. And just the background behind it, for the last couple of years, since the COVID and everything, since 2018 in the industry, both fire trucks and ambulances have gone up since 2018 about 25%, and the delivery times are ranging anywhere from 1 year for an ambulance or more to up to 4 years for a ladder truck. So we originally were going to wait until next year to pull the trigger on getting the purchase started, but in the interest of continuously rising costs of the work as well as the delivery times, the board authorized me to go ahead and start the process to have that second ambulance box remounted onto a new chassis, which will essentially save about $100,000 over the cost of a new ambulance, maybe even more than that at this point in time. We had great success with the first remount that we did a couple of years ago, and so we've chosen to go down this road again with the other, now older ambulance. So we expect to be ready to place an order by the end of this month. We expect the truck will be delivered no earlier than the fourth quarter of 2023, more likely the first quarter of 2024, and we will not have any budget impact on it. We are going to finance it as we did the previous one, but we won't have any budget change related to the bond payment in 2023. So just to give you a little bit of heads up about something we decided to do a little bit sooner than what we planned on, just because of delivery things. I want to give a shout out, and I always brag on our city service workers and our police officers. They're just absolutely the best coworkers you could ever ask for. But we had a situation a couple of weeks ago. Remember, we had that kind of an unexpected little snowfall I think it was on a Saturday morning, 3 weeks back. We were dispatched to a fire alarm at Double Gate Condominiums up off of 131, which if you're familiar with that, it's not only going up a hill to get to the driveway, but then going up the driveway is to get up another pretty significant grade on a fairly good sheet of ice. Even with the snow chains operating on the fire truck, they were having a great deal of difficulty getting up that driveway. It just so happened that an Ohio Department of Transportation plow truck came along at about the same time and saw that they were having difficulty and offered to help. And so the ODOT driver took his plow truck and knocked what he could out of the way as far as the snow and ice, and then put down a really good layer of salt. And finally, they were able to get up there and access the condominium. So we gave them a nice shout out on social media. But again, just another example of the service workers, in this case, the state men and women doing the right thing at the, how's it go, Jamie? Doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. And so I appreciate that. So you got a lot going on tonight, and I really don't have anything else to report. But do you have any questions for the fire department before we move on? I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to council comments. Anyone from council liking to make a comment?
I'd just like to make a motion to go into executive session at the conclusion of tonight's meeting pursuant to Section 3.05.2 of the Milford City Charter for the sole purpose of the consideration of the sale of city property and imminent litigation. We will be returning to the regular session at the conclusion of the executive session for sole purpose of adjourning the meeting.
Have a second?
Second.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
All right, and I have one thing. If you notice that we're all wearing these nice vintage I Love Milford buttons. A very special lady, Miriam Floria, donated a whole big giant bag of those to the city. And I think Jackie's going to have the rest of them in the office upstairs. So if you're ever out and about and you would like to wear a I Love Milford button, you may stop in and get one. So thank you to Miriam for those. And that takes us to new business, ordinances, resolutions.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 23-642, a resolution appointing representatives to the Claremont County Tax Incentive Review Council. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Milford, Ohio. Section 1, the City Manager and the Finance Director are hereby appointed as City of Milford representatives to the City of Milford Tax Incentive Review Council for calendar year 2023. The City of Milford participates in a Tax Incentive Review Council pursuant to Chapter 5709 of the Ohio Revised Code, and each year the TIRC, TIRC, must review tax-exempted projects for compliance, and the City of Milford is required to appoint 2 representatives to the TIRC with the confirmation of City Council. And the City of Milford has appointed the City Manager and the Finance Director to serve as City of Milford representatives to the TIRC, and Council now wishes to confirm these appointments. Section 2, under in accordance with Section 12.07 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ordinance number 23-190, an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as part of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Milford, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Whereas various ordinances of a general and permanent nature have been passed, which should be included in the codified ordinances of Milford, Ohio. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Milford, Ohio. Section 1, that the editing, arrangement, and numbering of these ordinances enacted by Council from January 1, 2022 to January 1, 2023, as listed in the comparative section table, are hereby approved and adopted as printed in the 2023 replacement pages to the codified ordinances so as to achieve uniformity of style and classification. A copy of such replacement pages are attached to this ordinance and incorporated as a part hereof. Section 2, the following sections of the Traffic and General Offenses Code as amended are hereby approved and adopted as amended or enacted so as to conform to enactments of the Ohio General Assembly. Such sections are set forth in the full 2023 replacement pages, and I'm not going to read each section that's amended, but they're all listed there: Traffic Code, General Offenses Code, and Fire Prevention Code. Section 3, this ordinance is deemed and declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and safety, and for the further reason that it is necessary to immediately update and to codify the recent changes to the Milford codified ordinances. As an emergency ordinance, this measure shall take effect immediately under Section 12.07 of the Milford City Charter.
Moved, move to suspend the rules and read by title only. Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ordinance number 23-190, an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as part of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Milford, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt. Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
I would say, Mayor, before this ordinance gets read, that I should have Mike Dean read it since he wrote it. But I guess I'll, let me get a drink here first.
It looks long.
Mine are much shorter than that, but he's a little smarter than me. Ordinance number 23-191, an ordinance declaring improvements to parcels of real property to be a public purpose, exempting such improvements from real property taxation. Whereas Section 5709.40 et sec of the Ohio Revised Code, open paren, the Municipal TIF Act, close paren, authorized municipalities to participate in a financing technique commonly known as tax increment financing, open paren TIF, and whereas pursuant to such authority, and in particular Section 5709.40B of the Ohio Revised Code, this City Council of the City of Milford, Ohio, has determined to declare improvements to certain parcels of real property located in the city to be a public purpose, and exempt such improvements from real property taxation in an amount equal to 75% of the assessed valuation of the improvements for a period of 10 years, the TIF exemption. And whereas the parcels of real property with respect to which the TIF exemption shall apply are specifically identified and depicted in Exhibit A attached hereto, the parcels, and whereas is required by Section 5709.83 of the Ohio Revised Code, prior to the consideration of this ordinance, notice has been provided to the Boards of Education of the Milford Exempted Village School District on January 19, 2023, and Great Oaks Career Campuses on January 19, 2023, regarding the consideration of this ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Milford, Ohio, with at least two-thirds of the members elected concurring. Section 1. Pursuant to Section 5709.40B of the Ohio Revised Code, this City Council hereby creates the Rivers Edge Drive Vision Development TIF, the boundaries of which shall be coextensive with the boundaries of the parcels, and shall include the parcels as specifically identified and depicted in Exhibit A attached hereto, which parcels are located in the incorporated area of the city. Section 2, that pursuant to Section 5709.40B of the Ohio Revised Code, further improvements to the parcels in the Rivers Edge Drive Vision Development TIF occurring after the date of this ordinance are hereby declared to be a public purpose and are exempt from real property taxation, commencing with the first tax day of the tax year in which there is a building or structure on the parcels equaling or exceeding $30 million in true market value that appears on the tax list and duplicate of real and public utility property, and ending on the 10th anniversary of such date, all in accordance with the Municipal TIF Act. It is hereby determined that a portion of such improvements shall be exempt from real property taxation, and such portion shall be 75% of the assessed value of such improvements. Section 3, that this City Council hereby finds and declares that certain existing public improvements in the city in which directly benefit the parcels, to wit, previously constructed public street improvements, including without limitation street paving, guardrail improvements, median improvements, increased signage, crosswalks, walkways, landscaping, traffic control devices, and alterations to existing streets, including intersection improvements, turn lanes, and traffic signals, previously constructed utilities, including but not limited to water facilities, sanitary sewers, gas mains, electric facilities, communication facilities, stormwater sewers, and retention detention facilities, have been and are for a public purpose, and were and remain necessary for the further development of the parcels, for the creation of jobs, increasing property values, and the provision of adequate traffic control in the city. Section 4, that during the term of the TIF exemption, the city shall not impose, and the owner or owners of the improvements to the parcels shall not be required to make annual service payments in lieu of taxes with respect to the improvements made to the parcels. As a result, it will not be necessary to create a tax increment equivalent fund as provided in Section 5709.43 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 5, that the city manager or his designee and the clerk of council, and to the extent necessary, members of city council and other city officials, are hereby authorized to do all things necessary and proper to carry out Sections 1 through 4 of this ordinance above, including but not limited to filing any required applications for tax exemption with the Claremont County Auditor and or the Ohio Tax Commissioner. Section 6, pursuant to Section 5709.40I of the Ohio Revised Code, the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to deliver a copy of this ordinance to the Director of the Ohio Department of Development within 15 days after its passage. On or before March 31 of each year that the TIF exemption remains in effect, the city manager or other authorized officer of the city shall prepare and submit to the Director of the Ohio Department of Development a status report required by the Municipal TIF Act. Section 7. If determined by the city manager to be in the best interest of the city council hereby authorizes the preparation of a development agreement, memorandum of understanding, or other similar agreement with the owner or developer of the parcels in a form to be approved by the law director or other legal counsel of the city, the development agreement, and further authorizes the city manager to execute and deliver the development agreement on behalf of this city council. The approval of such development agreement shall be conclusively evidenced by the execution thereof by the city manager. Section 8, that it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of the city council concerning and relating to the passage of this ordinance were taken in open meeting, and that all deliberations of this city council and of any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were taken in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 9, under and in accordance with Section 12.05 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage by city council.
Move to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ordinance number 23-191, an ordinance declaring improvements to parcels of real property to be a public purpose, exempting such improvements from real property taxation.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ordinance number 23-192, an ordinance amending appropriation ordinance 2022-181. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the Municipality of Milford, Ohio, Section 1. The Council of the City of Milford hereby authorizes the City Finance Director to amend appropriation ordinance 2022-181 by increasing the individual items as set forth and listed on the document attached hereto, identified as the City of Milford First Amendment appropriations and transfers fiscal year 2023, which attachment is incorporated herein pursuant to the, and in accordance with, I just noticed I didn't catch a typo, so I'm adding D, and in accordance with Section 12.03 of the Milford City Charter. Said amendments total $5,263,923. Section 2, under in accordance with Sections 11.05 and 12.07 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance requires only one reading and shall become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Move to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Second.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ordinance number 23-193. See, Mike, that's how you do them. Ordinance number 20. That's how it's done. Ordinance number 23 and those are ones that I copied. I didn't even do those. Ordinance number 23-193, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with JCM Maintenance LLC for the repair of the VAC all truck. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Milford, Ohio, Section 1. The Council of the City of Milford hereby authorizes the city manager to enter into and to execute an agreement with JCM Maintenance LLC for the repair of the VAC all truck in an amount not to exceed $11,110.39. The terms and conditions of this agreement are fully incorporated herein in their entirety as if fully rewritten herein pursuant to and in accordance with Section 12.03 of the Milford City Charter. Section 2, under in accordance with Section 12.07 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Jackie, did we miss a step on the last ordinance?
On 23-192, do we need to make?
Motion to adopt. Yeah.
There's only one, I thought we.
So one reading?
Yeah,
So
only one reading was good enough, yeah,
Okay.
because it's an appropriation ordinance under the charter, that's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
No,
that
you're
that
fine.
was
I'm
my,
glad you, I'm glad you said something
Okay.
because I need to be checked too, so yes. Because just for everybody's edification under the charter, because that's an appropriation ordinance, it only requires one reading.
okay.
And so it's a specific charter. item,
Mental
otherwise-
note
Well,
taken.
no, I'm glad, please
Probably
jump,
won't remember, but,
please jump in. I was still reading in my head.
oh, sorry. So are you finished with the other one?
Yes.
Oh,
upon
okay,
its-
now I can go on.
Now you can do it, yeah.
Move to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ordinance number 23-193, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with JCM Maintenance LLC for the repair of VAC all truck.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Russell.
Yes.
Ordinance number 23-194, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Alt and Witzig Engineering, Inc. for the construction, testing, and special inspections of 5 Points Landing Park. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Milford, Ohio. Section 1, the Council of the City of Milford hereby authorizes the city manager to enter into and to execute an agreement with Alt and Witzig Engineering, Inc. for the construction, testing, and special inspections of 5 Points Landing Park at a cost not to exceed $15,250. The terms and conditions of this agreement are fully incorporated in their entirety as if fully rewritten herein pursuant to and in accordance with Section 12.03 of the Milford City Charter. Section 2, under and in accordance with Section 12.07 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Move to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Second.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond.
Yes. Ordinance number 23-194, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Alt and Witzig Engineering Inc. for construction, testing, and special inspections of 5 Points Landing Park.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain.
Yes.
Mayor, I would offer my services to anybody who would like the reading of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." From now on, I'll be
I do want the record
Yeah.
to note that when you got to section 4 of the TIF ordinance and took a drink, Mr. Dean had a little smile.
Yeah, well, he's got me, yes, exactly.
I just wanted to take that up in the parking lot.
He gets paid by the written word, I get paid by the spoken word.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
So do I have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
Second.
Second.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Evans.
Yes. And just a reminder, we'll be returning only for the purpose of closing the meeting. Thank you all.